day of December, year 2022, in the Government Center in the town of Lake Placid, Florida. I ask everyone to please make sure your cell phones are either off or on vibrate. And if you please rise, we'll have a quick prayer and the pledge to our flag. Let us pray. To our gracious Heavenly Father, we thank you for another beautiful day in paradise, better known as Lake Placid, Florida. Please bless this council and grant that the decisions they make not only improve the town and help our town, but also our county and our state and our country. And please bless our first responders and troops around the world who are protecting our freedom. In your name we pray, amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Mayor Holbrook.
Here.
Councilmember Royce.
Here.
Councilmember Wilson.
Here.
Councilmember Sapp.
Here.
Councilmember Hayes.
Here.
Okay, consent agenda 1, we have 4 items, A, B, C, and D.
I move to approve consent agenda 1, A through D.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any further comments from the podium? Hearing none, I'll take it to the audience. Okay, bring it back. Poll the council.
Councilmember Sapp.
Yes.
Councilmember Wilson.
Yes.
Councilmember Royce.
Yes.
Councilmember Hayes.
Yes.
All right, we have no consent agenda 2, so we'll go to to presentations, request to speak. We got 3 or 4 people here that want to come up, and we'll first ask our Chamber of Commerce, Miss Jennifer Bush, if she would like to be first to the podium.
Thank you.
After the fabulous job you did this weekend, you deserve to be first.
Well, thank you. Obviously, that's a conglomeration of a lot of people coming together, and we appreciate the town and the work that you all do for that as well. What I'm here today for is the Country Fair is the weekend of February 4th and 5th, and prior to that, I would like to hang some banners on the north and south welcome signs. Those banners measure 15 by 3, and they are made of canvas material. And I just want to make sure that we present this properly and I get the approval to hang the banners beginning on the 20th of January and having them removed no later than the 6th of February.
She has filled out the proper paperwork. If any of you would like to see it, I have it right here.
That generally goes to our planning folks to say yes or no. I mean, you can approve it subject to planning saying yes or no, but I don't, as I say, I don't know, I haven't looked at the sign code in some
My
time.
intention was to get it here tonight, and if I need to come back in January for board, I will definitely come back in January.
That
You're just
works.
going to
Thank
see
you.
me every month. You got it. That's all I need.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll go to Mr. LaRue.
Okay.
I'll make a motion, we allow the chamber to hang the banners at the 2 locations for their event pending approval by our planning department.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any further comments from the podium? Seeing none, any from the audience? Bring it back, poll the council.
Councilmember Royce.
Yes.
Councilmember Wilson.
Yes.
Councilmember Sapp.
Yes.
Councilmember Hayes.
Yes.
Okay, we'll make sure we'll get that to him. Next, from the Highlands County Rowing Club, we have, is it Jody? Jody Welker?
Hi, everyone. Thank you for letting me be heard again. After last month's meeting, I had a meeting at Parks and Recreation, and we did map out a 20 by 80 space. I just received a quote for getting just alone the fencing in order to be able to put the sculling boats inside there, and that alone is going to cost about $16,000. Yeah, that was kind of an ouch I wasn't expecting either at that point, but let's face it, it's not inexpensive and it is security. After speaking with a couple of other people in the community, they were asking me if there was a way I possibly might be able to get some funding from the town of Lake Placid, maybe an RPAC or some sort of grant in order to start to cover those funds. I'm really here today to ask for that. I have put together a brochure, and basically the brochure is a donation brochure. I'm going to hand one to every single one of you, and the reason it's pretty explanatory about the equipment that I'm going to need and the costs of what it's going to be in order to make this happen. I have no problem going out and looking for all of that when I am at a point of knowing that I have to have fencing and I still have to get security system, lighting, or racks for the boats itself, that a little bit of funding and some grants would definitely be a wonderful Christmas present. So on that note, I also have something else to share with you. In 2023, George Clooney is going to bring out the movie The Boys on the Boat. It is the 1936 winning Olympics of U.S. rowing. It was the Washington State, at that point, Depression era of kids and how they took the world from nothing and they became the history of the United States. I have 8 books with me today. There's 9 in a crew boat. I'm your coxswain. I'm number 9. I stand in front of you after I did last month, and I counted 8 people involved in the town council. I would like to give all of you a copy of this book as a lend to read, if you wish. I think it will give you a strong idea of why I am really so headstrong about bringing this into our community, and also share with you a passion that I think every one of you, I might see you on the water in one day. So on that note, when I do give you the piece of paper which shows what I am requesting in donations from the community, not from the town itself, you have a number on the top of that sheet. There are 8 in a boat. The 1 number is the bowman. He's the one who has to look out, make sure we never hit an obstacle. The number 2, he keeps the bowman steady and the boat ready to go. 3, 4, 5, and 6, you're my engines. So if you have those numbers, you're the power, you're the strength. And 7 and 8, well, you're the one that create the stroke and make the cadence happen. When you read that book, I hope every one of you take the number you have been given and see yourself in the boat itself. And may I give you a journey of something I felt was very moving. And I think once you complete reading the book, or even listening to it on YouTube for free, you might end up feeling the same way about how moving it could be for our town. Thank you.
Thank you.
If you don't want to read it, you don't have to. I hope you enjoy it. Thank you. You're very welcome.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks.
You're my stroke.
Mr. Mayor, is it okay for me to make a suggestion to Judy?
Yeah.
Hey, Judy,
Before
I
she
have a-
leaves, yes,
yeah,
before she leaves.
Judy, I would just, my opinion, I think it's going to be very hard for the town itself, to come up with any resources. And I don't know whether or not you and I have had this conversation, but you really should be having a lot of conversation with Casey Walhart. And I really believe that RPAC and TDC, I mean, TDC perhaps even more than RPAC is the venue that would benefit, that has some resources. They may be able to invest in this, both RPAC and TDC. So I would make sure that Casey Hart knows exactly what it is you're trying to do and see if she can't help you on the county level, since this will be something that'll benefit.
By the county and done through, is there possible funding I can get through RPAC, or how do I have to go about finding that or getting support for it?
It's like everything else, you ask and you just try to justify what you're wanting to do, and what you're doing is you're building a program that's gonna bring people here, and it involves recreation, it involves tourism, so I just think that those, and frankly, they have more resources than we do that are designed to potentially be shared. I don't know whether or not you can get a penny from them, but those would be the two entities that you ought to be having conversations with.
Okay. I will do so.
Tourist Development Council and the Recreation Parks, I mean, the RPAC and TDC, so. And we can talk, offline sometime about who the appropriate, but you need to have a conversation with Casey Hart and make sure she understands what you're trying to do.
Great. Thank you very much.
I would also suggest that you contact folks like the Noon Rotary Club that raises a lot of money by the Wild Game Dinner, and all the Rotary clubs in Highlands County, service clubs like that. A lot of times they couldn't probably fund the whole project, but they can give, some funds. And
Well, that's what I'm hoping for. And I think by reviewing that brochure, you can see that there's like each one is a donation of just a piece, or, and how much you can and what it will actually allow the rowing club to afford
Exactly.
in order to make it work. Yeah, and I thank you for that too. I will actively be out there doing so. I just want to make sure when people drive past 27, they get the most beautiful view of these boats going on and know that we are partaking in this sport. So I really want it visual, and I, as a member of this town for so long, I don't want to take it to Sebring. I want to leave it here if I can. Thank you.
Any other
Any
comments?
questions?
Good luck.
Thank you very much for your time. Merry Christmas.
Next, we have Hollis Compton.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. How's Compton? We met with the DOT Thursday, I believe it was. They had 5 or 6 folks come from Tampa. This is the one that I want to speak about. What I'm concerned about is Heartland Boulevard, where it meets Highway 27. What they're proposing is a south turn only, which means that you would cross the inside lane to make a U-turn at Lake Lay Drive to go north. I think we need a light there. The part that a lot of people wouldn't know about is we already know that Placid Lakes, Deanna Estates, Lake June Point, all that head north go on Heartland Boulevard and turn left because they want to avoid the schools, et cetera. What a lot of people don't know about is there's one property on Heartland Boulevard that people are interested in buying that would develop maybe 100 homes. There is another piece of property, it's called the Brady property, next to Lake June Point. There's people that are interested in building homes there, maybe 55, maybe a few more. Another piece of property just west of there, just past Coldanley where I live, has just been purchased, 13 acres, and there's homes going to be built there. We also have Oak Island there. We also have all the homes that line Catfish Creek Road. We have not had the property on Heartland Boulevard sold. There used to be the Grove, across the street from Heartland National Bank. The back part of that, going west, is zoned multifamily. The part in the front is commercial. So try to visualize that, and people backed up to make a right-hand turn and then line up to make a U-turn to go north. So we spoke to the folks that were there. They had a really good presentation, actually, but it was quick. The deadline for making this decision is December 22nd. And Bert happened to be there as well. And so was Pete McDivitt and Mr. Talent, and Bobby Milkey, and one other gentleman I didn't know. But we asked him, is this all set in stone? And it's really not. And the hint that I got was December 22nd, it will be set in stone. But the hint that I got was that politically, you'll have an impact. If you can support the idea of having a traffic light there, we have a chance. The argument would be that there's going to be a traffic light at the racetrack. There's one, of course, at Interlake and one at Dow Hall Boulevard. The difference between Lake Placid and Sebring, naturally, is Sebring is much longer, and you got a tremendous amount of traffic lights and a lot more traffic up there. We're only about 1.5 miles, I guess, on our Highway 27. And I think we need to take the opportunity to support having a light there and be opposed to this, what I think is a nightmare. They've done another one down at Mirror Drive, I guess, but I think that's all I've got on my list. But I go towards Sebring every single day. And I was just talking with Eva. They're going to have one down where her husband usually takes a left-hand turn to go to work, and they're making the same deal. So he and the folks that live down where she does are going to be driving through town to make a right turn on either Interlake or Dow Hall Boulevard. Interlake is difficult, and you already know the intersection of Main Street and Dow Hall, you're working through that. So if we could avoid that and keep them going down Hartland and then north, I think would be a good idea. And I appreciate your consideration and concern about this. Thank you.
What's council's thoughts?
I know Mr. Harris has shared a letter, or a resolution to be more exact, about some other things, and I know that I had, Mr. Kleiner with the bank called me today about this, and I know he's very concerned, and he said basically the same thing Mr. Compton said. And I know that FDOT is doing this right turn only in quite a few places, between here and Sebring, and I don't, on the stuff they're working on south of Sebring now, I don't think people realize yet, they haven't changed the medians, but that's what they're gonna do, a number of things. And I think what Mr. Compton was saying is there's an opportunity, even if there was 4 lights in that relatively brief area in Lake Placid, that they ought to be able to synchronize those and not create, just a logistical nightmare in that short period of time. So I would suggest that we need to send either a letter or another resolution to FDOT District 1 and ask them and suggest that they incorporate that into their design for this area. Because years ago, we got all that right away along Heartland because we understood that was going to be one of, if not the primary access points for everything west of the road. And Mr. Compton's exactly right. There's going to be hundreds, if not thousands of units, dwelling units built in areas that road will service in the next, it won't be next year, but in the next 5 or 10 years, there's going to be a lot of area out there that's going to develop, and everyone's going to utilize that. Not to mention that one day, the property on the north side of Heartland will commercially develop, and that'll just add to it. So even if there is not a light put up when they do this work over the next several years, that needs to be part of their design. So I'll make that motion that we authorize the town attorney to send a letter with our request to that note.
I'll second that. I also think it's a terrible idea to send them halfway to the next light on Lake Clay, which is already problematic with people trying to come out of there as it is with the school and everything there. And as time goes on, you know, the commercial area just north of Heartland is going to be developed sooner than later, I would imagine, and it's a safety issue now. And I think it would be far safer to have a traffic signal there than it would be to do what they do up there at the Ag Center. That really gets me, especially it's not like, I mean, you got to go a piece down there, go south a half a mile, and then wait for traffic northbound on 27, just half mile north of the intersection of 66 and 98, and that can get hairy at times as well, but I'm in support, and I'll second that motion.
And let me say that, as a guy that has to use that up there in Sebring, then the people that are coming out from the health department, then there's this seesaw as to whether the people that are trying to make the U-turn have the right of way, or the people that are coming across the road on, what is that, one of the Georges, have the right of way. And so it's a never-ending problem up there that I deal with on a every single day basis.
If I may, Mr. Mayor, I would encourage you to convert that from a letter to a resolution, because that's an act of council.
That was the intent of my motion. I just misworded it. Thank you.
I agree. I think it definitely should be a resolution. My fear is that getting the attention of FDOT, because that's been problematic in the past. And I know when they were first talking about the intersection where we're dealing now with the light at South Lakeview, and I came to the meeting, they didn't even know there was a convenience store planned there. I'm like, really? So I'm just really concerned that we get their attention. So I think definitely a resolution would be in order.
Strong words to follow.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion from the podium? Hearing none, we'll take it to the audience. Bring it back, poll the council.
Councilmember Royce?
Yes.
Councilmember Wilson?
Yes.
Councilmember Sapp?
Yes.
Councilmember Hayes?
Yes.
While we're on traffic, may I add another?
Sure.
I hoped to get before you an ordinance adopted by the county which expands the setbacks along primary, secondary collector roads of the county as they go through the county. The county ordinance does not apply to setbacks as they go through the town. And I was talking with county staff on some other road maintenance issues. They told me of that, and I would recommend you at least consider that type of an ordinance, expanding the setbacks on major and minor collectors through the county. I mean, of county roads through the town. If you will, I'll bring you an ordinance next time. So all I would ask tonight is whether you want to consider that. You're talking about Interlake, Main Street, Heartland. You know, Heartland's, as Ray says, that's 100-foot wide right-of-way already.
What about South Main?
Yeah, I was
Yeah.
looking at South Main. Yeah.
I'm sure there will be unintended consequences. We probably need to put some language. Let me just stop there. It's something I think you ought to at least consider. We may even invite the county engineer down to explain how and why, so you're not hearing it just from the lawyer. An engineer would be better as well, or the county engineer particularly.
But we're not talking about 27, we're talking about the feeder roads into 27.
Yes, the county roads, county-maintained roads.
Any comments on that, guys?
I think it's a good idea.
Okay. That's what I wanted to hear.
That'll keep us on board with the county. We want to make them happy when we can.
You don't need you want a motion on it?
I would like to hear more than just one councilman at least
Yes.
encourage.
Do it,
Yes,
please.
encourage.
Okay.
Bring it back next month will be good.
Okay. All right, is that it?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right, we'll now go to 5A1, the discussion of the Fire Station 36.
Mr. Mayor, I think that's on the agenda because I asked Mr. Williams to do it, and it's just a simple request. Again, I'd like for us to, I'd like for the town attorney to prepare a letter for the mayor's signature that asks the appropriate county officials to come to our next meeting to give us a briefing on where the county is in regards to the new fire department project that's going to occur in Lake Placid. I sort of know what's going on, and I privately push them a little bit, but I think we need to, right now, apparently they are waiting to have a consultation with FWC over whether or not they have to do a cover board study for sand skinks on that property. So, I mean, just months go by and, pardon my French, BS happens that I think is unnecessary, and we need to ask everyone from the county administrator to Chief Stearns to Mr. Marine, and I just think we need to publicly kind of prod them a little bit, and so I would ask that we write a letter to them and ask them to come down and give us a full presentation or, you know, what's going on, what their timeline. They're going to miss the timelines that they had when we gave them the property, so they need to come down and explain to us what's going on. We need to prompt them, if it's okay with the rest of the council members. Because me bugging them alone doesn't seem to move them that much faster.
What was the timeline on this second,
I think they were supposed, Charlie, I think they were supposed to be turning dirt by late spring or early summer or something, and they've done some design work, they're doing some siding work. The young lady who's kind of got the project, she is cautious in nature, and so things aren't happening on parallel tracks. It's like, we're waiting for step one, and then it takes 3 months, and we got hung up in a silly, nonsensical survey issue that ended up being not an issue that ate up 4 or 5 months. And now she wants to have a consultation with FWC. And so it's like, I just want them, I can tell you there is concern or frustration amongst other people in the county chain. We need to ask Ms. Herner to have her staff come down here and explain where we're at and what's going on.
can anyone answer from the initial decision that we gave the first time that we dedicated, that we were going to transfer ownership to it? Are we in year 4 yet?
Gotta be.
4 years and we're nothing. So I'm in agreement. I am ready for this to move on.
The money's been set aside, and I know that the previous administrator was very concerned that they need to spend some of the money that they borrowed specifically for this project. I mean, it's in their best interest, and there's things that have happened. I just think, if nothing else, we just need to remind Ms. Herner that this needs to be a priority for her staff to get on, and she needs to sit down, frankly, with some of her folks and say, okay, how do we pick up the pace? And I think that if we send the letter and know we're going to make a public presentation, then I think that helps pick up the pace, hopefully.
I'm in agreement.
Thank you all.
Any other comments on that issue? Any from the public? Okay. Next, we go to (5C1), Town Code Officer.
I had several discussions with Ray and with Mr. LaRue. Mr. LaRue, you saw his initial invoice was quite something. That was a lot, probably half of Mr. LaRue coming up to speed on things that are in our code that are unique to Lake Placid, so I don't expect that on a regular basis. But there have been discussions Ray gave me some suggestions on using our code enforcement officer as broadly as we could to help with some of our zoning issues. So the resolution you have in your package is my attempt to get that discussion, conversation started. Phil, could you scroll up a bit? To the next document. There you go. There are several questions in there. I thought I wasn't sure where who he reports to in paragraph 1, so I have it administrator/chief of police. I thought we had moved it out of the police department under Phil, but then maybe we've moved it back. So somebody needs to say who is supervising. Trying to make him the initial point of contact, or her, when people call in with zoning questions. To me, should be manageable. If someone asks, gee, what can you do in agricultural or commercial or B1, to cut and paste and send them the B1 portion of our code. Drafted some letters that would make that fairly easy for him to attach the appropriate section and send it out. Similar with our land use plan. I would think he would also, would you scroll up to 2 and 3? Let us look at 2 and 3, Phil. Trying to give some context to what he would do with code violations, warnings and citations. Keep growing if you would, Phil. Dealing with questions from the public. I don't think we would want him to give off-the-cuff opinions on what can and can't be done, at least initially. I think this is a learning curve. From what I've gathered, he's very energetic and ready to go work for the town. I say written confirmations simply because, again, if someone asks, what can you do in agriculture, you want his response to be in writing and giving them the black letter code, so you don't come back and say, yeah, but he told me I could go, plant marijuana without a permit, for example. So this would try to make him the initial point of contact with the easy questions, in addition to being code enforcement and prosecution and collection, putting as many code matters under his purview as we possibly could, as a cost savings with Mr. LaRue and a point of contact with the public. If you'd keep scrolling, Phil. So this is for your initial consideration. Don't necessarily expect an answer tonight. Again, trying to get the conversation started.
If I might, Mr. Mayor, as Mr. Harris knows, I think that we need to do, if not this, we need to do something like this, and we need to, bring this function in-house, and not, number one, to save some money that what we'll be paying for the RU, and number two, we need to be able to have people get to yes or no a lot quicker than we do, or how, yes, no, or how, a lot quicker. And I know people like Mr. Sapp have been through this ringer and know that it's a nightmare when you're trying to do something and you're dealing with a lot of different people. I think we ought to move forward, if not tonight, then next meeting with a resolution. I see the only thing in black is whether or not this person would work directly under the administrator under the police chief. Is that a decision point, or is that really a conversation that perhaps Mr. Harris, you, Mr. Williams, and Chief Fansler need to have to figure out what's appropriate, or do we just leave that up to the mayor to assign it? Because I'm comfortable just letting the mayor assign them to where he wants them to
We
work.
can certainly put in the word "or" in place of a slash and let the mayor make that call from time to time as he sees fit.
I would recommend putting it under Phil with his own department, own office, completely separate than the police department.
And as typical, I would think to put it under the police department. Because you and I are always on different sides. However, in my past experience when dealing with municipalities, oftentimes the code enforcement is under the law enforcement side.
He's also taken on some of Jim Leroux's responsibilities as well.
Well,
And to have
that's-
people coming and going from the police department might be a bit much.
Yeah, yeah. But that's the reason that I mentioned earlier when we were talking about the signs for the fair, that couldn't he address it? Because why would we have to go to Mr. LaRue? I believe the code enforcement officer should be able to address that, and we not have to pay Mr. LaRue for his, I mean, obviously, a lot more money, so.
I think the police have their hands full with what they're doing, ticketing and trafficking and school functions, crossing guards. It takes something off their plate. It's already budgeted separately.
And he does substitute as a crossing guard from time to time, and is
Which is an
trained to do
expensive
that.
thing for us to do with a $200,000 a year position. Everyone seems to be dumping money into that little side account to peel money out of their budget, make the numbers look better the way I see it. And if we're gonna have a code enforcement person, he needs to have an office with a sign up there, people know where to go, instead of having to maze through the police department to get to him. And I would like to see him with his,
When we get our new
Own
police
office, own
department built, we'll be
responsibilities.
fine.
I tend to agree with you, Mr. Sapp. I think it's an administrative position, and it's going to be whoever he, I guess it would be a he now, but whoever he or she is, they're going to be dealing on a weekly basis with the office up in Sebring and what's going on, and so I tend to think that they need to be, no matter, I don't know who, they need to be housed here. They need to be where they can have access to Phil and Eva and other folks and know what's going on
not
here.
have one more chain of command to have to work through. And it relieves the police chief of the responsibility. He can focus on policing, and it frees the code enforcement officer up to work directly with whoever he needs to work with on the council or county or wherever. And we had this discussion before. I don't know that this needs to be somebody with a badge and a gun. It's okay to do that, it's fine, but it doesn't necessarily have to be.
If you're enforcing the code, I like the man having a badge and the gun.
I don't disagree with that, yes.
But if you're out there discussing whether or not the chamber gets a sign permit, the fellow doesn't need to be resting his hand on his 45. So that's an interesting discussion. I look forward to see how y'all decide that one.
Most code enforcement across the board are civilian. They're not badge and a gun.
Right.
I'm
Right,
good with
typically, yes.
So I'm just throwing that out for.
The one
Also,
thing,
there is no more office space in this building unless we do some renovation. This, renting it out to the senator, incoming senator, that's it.
well, I think when
Do
we,
some
when we,
renovation and add some
We're probably gonna have to then,
walls.
so, yeah, shouldn't be a problem.
when we build our new police station, we can make sure there's a place there.
You keep going to that, it's a completely different issue.
No,
I don't see the sense of humor in it, but yes. After going round and round with this building for so long, which you missed, it's very frustrating to dance around that issue.
I do believe that the code enforcement officer should have one boss, not
I agree.
either the administrator or the police chief, one boss.
I agree with that, yes. Phil would be good for that.
And I think there is plenty of room in this build. Now, maybe it'll take some cubicles, maybe it takes a wall, but there is plenty of room in this building to add other work areas or offices. I mean, right now, our staff's enjoying having very spacious.
Large offices compared to what they were doing before, where there were two people in one tiny office. Now there's one person in an office that takes room for three.
Yeah.
So there's plenty of room to grow. We haven't done a walkthrough since we bought the place, but it would be, I think, pretty easy to make something happen if we needed to. with something hopefully closer to the front door, so they don't have to walk the 200 or 300 feet through the building to get to it. Code enforcement, I would think, needs to be close to the main office, so people walk right in and go right to it without having to interrupt everybody else's operation as they're working in the office. That's a different discussion. I'm glad we're having this talk. I hadn't even considered it until we're bringing it up now.
I would like to invite your attention to paragraph 5B. Was up there, Phil, if you go the other way. 5B. In writing this, it dawned on, thank you, whoa, right there. It dawned on me that I don't know where our zoning map and our official zoning, land use, and all those records are kept. They've been with the county on the county's websites, and if the county's no longer doing, then we may need to make our own provision for those. So I put that in, hoping Phil could get with them, and this is my suggestion. No feelings hurt if y'all come up with something different. I would think we want something very compatible with the county so it can go on the county's layered website to see our zoning and land use, so you got good public transparency and visibility. And I personally don't know how to do that. So when I don't know an answer, it's chunk it to Phil and say good luck. You were supposed to smile a little bit.
Not a lot of this one.
Well, just commenting, I mean, sometimes the folks that's writing the stuff and everything should know what staff has already been doing as far as trying to make this happen and working on it and trying to bring it in. And then you also have the situation that if, you know, it's a lot of this stuff, if you put it on the website, you're talking about ADA compliance, about a lot of plans, and you put that on the website, it better be ADA compliant. And there's a lot of stuff and everything like that. I mean, all those FDOT plans that they've got, it's not ADA compliant. And that's why we've been controlling what we put on the website. So I was a website freak. I mean, you know, have everything on there. But you just have to be careful what you put on there and how you put it on there anymore. Thanks to the lawsuits and everything across the.
I think the goal here is to take some of the town's fiscal responsibility that we'd normally give to LaRue, which I'm not sure how he's falling into things right now, and put that into code enforcement, which is part of what they're doing already. You're already paying for it. Let's refine the position a little bit and try to make it more useful to what we're doing, since we're already in a little bit of disarray with the county doing what they've done, and I don't know if they throw us to the wolves or not, but we're kind of trying to figure it out ourselves where we are, and this is a nice little fit.
I would suggest that, and Phil is, and let me say it a little more directly than Phil just did. This resolution has not been passed by Phil. I wrote it, gave it to him for the agenda, so he gets it the same time y'all do. I would think the fair discussion would be, have this discussion tonight as you are, then give Phil some time to digest it, meet with James, meet with the code officer, and come back with another proposal of how we go forward and where he's stationed.
Conceptually, as a town administrator, I'm not opposed to it. I mean, James and I had already had the discussion and everything about who the code enforcement officer should come under, and that was before our planners had quit, and we knew what ramifications were coming. And between the two of us, it was flip a coin, basically. There was nothing to be gained at that time. I mean, you didn't have this super planning thing that was coming down on you. Yeah, the only thing I would recommend is that the and I know Haas is going to disagree with this, but under control, the control of the administrator, chief of police, and the town's local planning agency, I would not put a town employee under the control of a non-town employee, because they don't know the liability connected with that.
That is true.
I would not have
A
that
group of
language.
volunteers do not. Maybe we go back to the word of collaboration.
Collaboration is great, and I've always highly recommended that,
Sure.
but not controlled.
I think that speaks to Mr. Harris's point. You guys you go through this, wordsmith it, clean up some sentences, make a couple decisions, and bring it back to us in January, and I think it'll get approved.
And somebody needs to talk to the code enforcement officer.
Oh, yeah,
His
that's
eyes
one of the first things.
might roll
Make
back
sure
out of
he's
his
on
head.
board if he even thinks he would be willing to do it. Yeah, we'll have to do some
It'll
thinking
be
on
an
it.
education.
Yeah,
element.
well, it's gonna be an education for all of us, because we're gonna have to think on this for a little bit, so. But we can do that and bring it back next.
Well, we need the position, so I think you all ought to have a conversation, because if this particular individual isn't interested in this, then we need to have a conversation about whether he wants to become a law enforcement officer or he wants to be in kind of code and planning, because otherwise, we're gonna be running up one heck of a tab with LaRue, and there's gonna be a lot of confusion and a lot of time wasted. So, I mean, to me, this is an important place to get to, hopefully sooner rather than later. So I would encourage the mayor and senior staff to have the conversations and bring us back the resolution in January.
Okay,
And I was sort of looking, of course, this is I was sort of looking at maybe doing the sign ordinances and the zoning stuff myself, maybe taking on some part of that. So don't tell me, I'm not, but I've been looking at it, that possibility. I mean, so this is conceptually, this is not something that we haven't been concerned about, is the high price of Mr. Lurie. Joe, I see you come up. I'd like to hear Joe has been instrumental and very interested in our planning part, so.
Yeah, Joe Barber for the record. I think I'm the one that works closest with the planners and have for a long time. I think it's only my concern that there needs to be an education component to this. Most of the concepts, plats, land use, zoning are foreign to the general public and probably to him, unless you've been educated in that. So we need to provide him some probably courses in order to get him up to speed so that he can do a good job for the town. I would just let you know how important that is, that he's educated and really knows and understands it, because it's not a simple thing. So I would just encourage that we have some sort of component in that in this resolution, that the town would provide that for him.
almost, we'd have to. Yeah, we'd have to. And one of the things I was thinking about, if we decide to do this, is maybe get with the chief and you and Phil and myself, and let's talk to him and just see what his thoughts are first, and see if he's willing to even accept a position like this. So, well, yeah.
What you may want to do is send him up and let him sit next to Melanie for a few days.
Yeah,
In Sebring, and see how it works.
Well, we may need to hire somebody like Melanie and increase the staff and have him do the field work while she's answering questions, if there's someone like that. It might be a two-person position. For what we're spending on Jim LaRue, not that he's not working for it, it's just very expensive to do what he does. We'll see where we are after a few months, but right now, the number was frightening.
Yeah, the whole point we have LaRue is because they don't have enough Melanies out there.
Right.
Yeah.
And now we're definitely paying for it, and it might be with a different position. The county's just pulling back a little bit. They can't, do
Well,
everything
they
have to
just
do.
can't service everything that they're obligated to now.
And I think that's right. And I think that the mayor and senior staff need to have those conversations and figure out, how do we solve this planning code enforcement conundrum? And there may be other folks that are interested in kind of working in a planning code enforcement capacity, other than, I'm not trying to say we shouldn't use the young man, but if he doesn't have the aptitude for it or desire for it, or his long-term goal is to be in law enforcement, then we help him with his long-term goal of being in law enforcement, and we look elsewhere. There are other options, but, we can't let any position be driven by just any individual. It's got to be what's going to work best. Alls I know, in working with the folks at Highlands County Development Services, Mr. Barber's right, there's an educational component to it, but most people that are good at it are people that have just dove in and started to learn it and read the stuff. And I mean, some of the folks they've hired that have had planning degrees haven't lasted 3 weeks, but people that started as administrative aides or secretaries are now running the department because they're the ones that have dove in and had a desire to learn it. So if you have the right aptitude or desire to do it, then I don't mean it mean, but it's not physics or rocket science. It's kind of delving into comp plans and code books and stuff like that.
All right, well, I think we got enough to get started on.
Yeah, I'd like to ask the question too, I mean, I did a little check and everything early on when the counties first became our planners, because there was a little period of time there that council discussed maybe going back to Jim LaRue. And his prices were way more than what we could afford back then. I mean, so there's nothing new. Taking that little intricate part of the planning, for example, the zoning and the part that's mentioned in here, could we not be, and putting a person in that position and putting them in, could we not be costing us more than what it would be for Jim LaRue to answer those simple questions?
That's what we're gonna have to
planning
look
and
at, yeah.
I mean, on zoning, because I didn't see anything in his bill that said anything about zoning.
You'll get questions, I suspect, from the general public saying, what can I do on lot one? And who answers that today?
But is it worth paying $100,000 a year for someone to do that, rather than just pay Jim LaRue $35 for that question? And that's what I'm saying. I'm not arguing or debating. I'm just saying.
My assumption is we've got our code enforcement officer, and he will have a general grasp of our code and could, in a few months' time, learn to answer that question. And that would be a lower cost per hour, is my assumption. And he's on your payroll already. What else is he going to do? He's not doing code enforcement that much, is he, today?
Huh?
What
Code
percentage of
enforcement?
his time is code enforcement today?
I'd have to ask
It
the
was
chief
in the
about that
director's report,
exactly.
how many contacts he had. I probably
What percentage?
have
I mean, is he also law enforcement?
Yeah, well, is he not? Okay.
He's crossing
That's
guard.
something that-
He's probably, for the last several weeks, he's been crossing guard. And it's at least an hour a day, 2 hours a day, once in the morning, once in the afternoon. That's 10 hours a week. That's probably a quarter of his week as a crossing guard. And crossing guards don't have the training he has and the vehicle he has and everything he has. It's not a good use of the resource. And if we can't find somebody to sit there, we don't have a choice. And I was looking at LaRue's bills, and 4 of them were for questions that were not really pertaining to the actual town of Lake Placid. It was questions about the greater area, and the town's gonna end up paying for a lot of that. And it might just be a phone call to the code enforcement man. He could answer those questions, and if Jim's phone calls are $35 each, it'd be great, but it looked to me like they were way more than that. And I'm not saying he's taking advantage of anything, I'm not at all, because his time is expensive, and his knowledge is expensive, and we need it right now, but we need to try to find a way to consolidate everything and make it easier for someone like me who's been trying to build buildings for the same building for a few years, and I'm still not done yet. And it's nobody's direct fault, it's just a series of problems. From my engineer to the county to a bunch of different stuff.
From the town administrator position, I'm all over saving us money for, I mean, I'm. Sure.
Well, didn't you take some classes in that planning and stuff like that at some point? And didn't you take some of those classes?
Was that something we discussed?
No, I mean, years ago. Don't you have some background in that planning and zoning stuff?
No, not really.
No?
Not really. Mine was just total law enforcement.
Okay.
Yeah.
See, I envision this person, they're going to have to, they'll very quickly figure out, okay, when do I need to call LaRue? When do I need to call Bert? When do I need to call the town administrator? When do I need to call Melanie or the other folks up at the county? I mean, that's what this person will be. They'll be facilitating the flow of information. They should, I mean, if they don't, in a matter of months, pick up, who should I be talking to about this? then we need to get shed of them and get somebody else. I had no idea our code enforcement officer was now being used as a crossing guard. So I'm trying not to demean it. I thought the crossing guards they were hiring primarily retirees and part-time folks to hold the sign I mean, I know it's the law. I would get rid of every single crossing guard. It's a waste of money to pay crossing guards. You know, I hate to say, well, I know how they do it in New York. Hell, kids up there, they're crossing streets with traffic and getting on subways, and we're afraid our kids can't cross the damn,
Be careful,
five
Ray.
kids can't cross the
Got on that
street.
road a couple of years ago. Be careful.
Yeah, it's silly.
I agree. We have, what, 4? We need another one on the other side of the railroad tracks where my office is. It's the most dangerous part of town, and there's nobody there. Those kids seem to survive fine. You know,
They got to learn to cross the street by themselves.
I don't disagree with you, and it's costing the town $100,000 a year. Everybody who lives 2 miles out, they get buses. Their buses are paid for. The town has to pay for all their own stuff.
Bring back the safety patrol program and put them there. I mean, you know, it's a waste of resources.
Is that required by, I mean, does the school district tell us what we have to do
I
with
thought
that?
the school paid for it, and I got on here and found out the town pays for it.
Turn the mic on, James.
The reason we have them is the Florida statute says that we are to provide them because the schools are within the town limits. Josh is covering, or our code enforcement's covering, because we can't get anybody else to fill out an application to fill those positions. So it's either him, or I pay an off-duty officer to come in to cover the positions. So whatever your wish is, I'll have an officer cover it, or Josh, who's the, kind of the fill-in.
De-annex the schools.
I've been after that for a while. We shouldn't have paid for Green Dragon Drive. It's ridiculous. The town has to cover that. And very few of the students actually go to those schools. I think 6 or 7% of the kids who live in town go to that school. But the town had to pay for half that road. Just the numbers don't make any sense to me. Yeah, let's de-annex them. Can we do that? We got rid of Tangerine Drive. Can we get rid of the schools too?
Can I recommend that y'all have Bert approach the county staff with that and not the town administrator?
How you feeling, Bert?
I don't see the humor in it. I don't think it's funny at all.
It's not, but I
frustrated me
know
for
what you're
years.
gonna get, and that's
Yeah, I
fine.
know. School board, whatever.
I
they're
know
not
what
gonna
you're
do.
gonna get.
Yeah.
Because they're gonna quote Florida statute, and that's all there is to it. I've done it before. I've done it when I was the chief. And we went there. And there's a lot of liability connected in those crossings with just not having someone there. Whenever it's on Florida statute that you will have someone there.
Where do you draw the line, though? We have 4, we need 5, or we have 4, we need 6, or we have 4, maybe we can only do 2. Does one crossing guard meet that requirement? They have to cross at that one point, or they take it upon themselves. You know, who chose a number of 4 places? I know we added the one up there by Tangerine, and not that many kids were crossing there. Since I've been sitting here, we've added, over the last 5 years, that top position. I don't think it was there before. I think there were like 5 or 6 kids who crossed there, and we're providing a position for that. Do we make them walk
Yeah,
or
we did.
cross? The kids cross wherever they cross anyway, for the most part.
Right.
And they are on the other side of town, on the south side, on Eastlake. Probably a third of the kids cross on Eastlake, and there's no guard there. That's not really on school board property, but where is school board property? I mean, that's town property, because they're part of the town, so it's a bit of a conundrum. And it's given me a headache for years, and I'm glad we're talking about it. But I don't think we're gonna change anything.
Well, we just fund 2 crossing guard positions and designate 2 places and say that's where the crossing guards are gonna be and that's where kids have to cross.
But can we do that, or does the school board set that?
The school board, they should provide them if they wanna have
Florida
them.
statute.
Florida statute says we have to provide a crossing guard, but the Florida statute doesn't
Doesn't
designate
say how
where.
many, no. But it's within so many feet, or I can't tell you exactly what the statute says right now, but it is within such a distance from the school. To cross the railroad tracks does not meet it, that's why there's nobody there. But the 4 locations that we have are the highest foot traffic of students, including Tangerine, even if it's only 4 or 5 kids, there's a lot of traffic going through there. We kill one kid, what are we going to justify and say that we couldn't put a crossing guard there? That's why we added that one there.
Well, I would disagree. I think kids need to learn how to cross the street.
I can't disagree with you, but they don't.
Well,
Or put a flashing light up with a button on it, because there's a crosswalk there and pedestrians have the right of way. Kim and I walk through there several times a week, and we got to dart traffic like Frogger to get across there. It's not very well lit, cars can't see us, and they don't even know there's a crossing there until they're on top of it. So there are other ways to handle this, and we've talked about that before, flashing lights, push a button, wait for it to turn red.
Well, the statute does not say how many. If the council's will is to reduce by 1, we'll remove the Tangerine and Interlake.
We're trying to make all the numbers fit into a budget. And the numbers are greatly increasing every year, with costs going up, labor, fuel, insurance particularly. It's very frustrating.
Okay. If I could summarize one point. This resolution is based on the concept if the code enforcement officer is going to be familiar enough with the code to hand out citations and to enforce, he would be familiar enough to answer the light questions from the public. That was the concept I was trying to work from.
I don't think that's going to be a problem. I think Josh is a bright kid, and matter of fact, he's in code enforcement school this week. He's driven. I'm not sure where it came that he wanted to be law enforcement. He's pretty directed at the idea of being the code enforcement officer. Maybe years down the road, if that crosses his path, that he wants to maybe change careers, but that has not been a discussion. He was hired under the understanding that he was code enforcement only, and that is what he's really put a lot of energy into doing, is nothing but code enforcement.
Then this ought to make him smile.
Absolutely. Yeah, matter of fact, he's always looking for a little more to do, so yeah, I don't think there's gonna be anything but maybe some patience on your side while he learns what he needs to do. I
He's
think
like
he'll probably
Superman.
pick it
Every
up a
time I
lot
look up, I
faster
see
than
him
you might
driving through
anticipate
town.
that he might
Every
pick it
time I
up
look.
because he's pretty bright.
Everywhere. Yeah, it's crazy.
So this is not an additional position, it would be additional responsibility for the current position for everyone's.
Correct.
Okay.
And since I'm still kind of over code enforcement at the moment, I have to stick up for my guys. Is there going to be a little bit of an increase for salary, because there's going to be quite an increase in, you don't have to answer this, but I just put it out there for you to think about, because if he's going to increase his workload, we need to maybe compensate in his salary. Thank you.
Okay, so,
I do want to add, though, with a small town staff wears a lot of hats, okay, and a lot of their, Leanne, our utility, she is very talented with computers, and she's doing the streaming tonight, so as in case anything happens to me, or I'm not here, or something like that, that's able to keep right on going, so. I mean, it's a cross-training effort, you know. So I just throw that out there in regards to
all right,
covering
so
positions.
the way I see this, we'll just have to get back with council next month on this.
Do what?
You say we'll just have to do some research,
Yeah, we
do
just-
some research and get back with council next month.
Well, and take this as a definite direction the council wants to go,
Okay.
I assume. I see everybody's head nodding.
As a former patrol boy, I agree with Councilman Ray and Councilman Gregg. Probably the most kids that we see going to school walk through the circle, and every morning, and I walk with my lorry every morning, and the kids are respectful. The cars stop for them and let them go by, and it is a pleasure seeing hundreds of kids come through there. So that's all I have to say on that. I think this is a wonderful idea, and I think that if we do what Ray's suggesting, and make the code enforcement where they know architectural standards, they know the zoning, this sort of thing. It's going to be a big job, just like Chief just said. But I think it's a great idea, and I think it would be one of the most important positions we have in this town. As a real estate person, I can speak for a lot that have said, to have to send clients up to Sebring to speak to people that are not part of Lake Placid, a lot of times is not a good thing. And things are overheard when a person's planning on doing a development or something, someone else is listening to it. And right away, this happened to me, Bert knows about it, within the last month or so. Somebody else heard it and directed them to going to Sebring Industrial Park, I think it was. But if we can control more of what happens to our destiny here in town, I think this is a great step in the right direction. And I do agree with the chief. It will be a big job, knowing zoning, and zoning is confusing between Lake Placid and the county. They're different. So if we have a person here that knows Lake Placid, knows the streets of Lake Placid, I think this is a wonderful start, and I appreciate you all going forward with this. Thank you.
You never realize what you got till it's gone, but it was better directing people to go to Sebring than directing them to go to Fort Myers to talk to Jim LaRue. So, because that's where this planning's at, so.
Okay. Any more on this subject? Okay. I don't think there's any motions or anything needs to be
Nothing needed.
required.
No,
so-
sir.
All right, next we'll go to 5C2, the next amendment on the Conference Center Utilities Agreement.
This is the sixth iteration of our agreement with the Conference Center. It allocates to the lift stations on Green Dragon and South Main Street the two grants and reserves the 1.8 million for the initial grant and supplemental, I forget where it was from. The Conference Center has agreed with the approach, and it also corrects a mistake I made in one of the prior agreements. We have a pioneering agreement in the water, not the sewer lines. A bunch of other sewage will be coming through the line from the conference. So there's no pioneering agreement there. Joe, you jumped up.
Just
Talk
here for
further.
questions. I want to make sure I think, was this the agreement where we spelled out a 30 by 40 easement for the?
Yes.
Okay.
We'll change that. That needs to be changed. I was under the impression the lift station site would be 30 by 30. Joe tells me it's 30 by 40. Where is that, Joe? This is where we allocate the,
It's 3A, lift station construction, maintenance, and ownership.
Yeah.
there you go, 30 by 30. The conference center, Matt and I went back and forth in a good way, not a bad way. I had it at one point where we would own the land versus having an easement. Matt made the point, and I agree with him, but if our lift station ever goes away, the title would revert to them free of the easement. I'm good with that. We only want it if there's a lift station there.
So do we need to change the wording on 5A, 3A to say 30 by 40?
Yes.
I'll move approval of the agreement, subject to the change in 3A of it being reading 30 by 40 lift station.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any further discussion from the podium?
Yes. Pam, sitting in the back center, found that these 4 agreements, that should be these six agreements, and let's see. This is the 6th in a series of, there are 4, and the 3 agreements, it should be the prior 5 agreements. I have made that correction in the document I will give to the clerk.
Scrivener's errors are part of the motion.
Second.
Okay.
Bill.
Any other comments from the podium? Hearing none, we'll take it to the audience. Bring her back, poll the council.
Councilmember Royce?
Yes.
Councilmember Sapp?
Yes.
Councilmember Wilson?
Yes.
Councilmember Hayes?
Yes.
All right. Where we go from here now, Joe?
The next one is an easement we'll need for the new Green Dragon lift
Okay,
station.
5C3.
These are the two contracts you approved last month with Smokes. One is the Green Dragon lift station parcel, and next is the 30-foot utility parcel right-of-way along Smokes for West Interlake and North Tangerine. These are the two agreements. I have with me the ones signed by the Smokes. There were a couple of typos, not that one, that Kyle caught, and they have been corrected. So if you would authorize the mayor to sign the revised agreements.
Could I ask a question here? There's a blank, couple blanks there under fiscal impact. You have that fiscal impact? The dollars?
I had that in the last time. The Green Dragon lift station was the same price whether we bought the temporary and then retained a very small permanent. So I asked, and the Smokes agreed to do the temporary would become the permanent at the same price, $60,000 per acre. Here is the revised and final. That shows you the land we're buying from Smokes.
Okay.
And here is, it's the document that's before you in the package. I would have to do some quick math. It was about $19,000.
Yeah, 19,670. I'm good.
There you go.
Okay.
So that's the fiscal impact of
Thank
that
you.
one.
Thank you.
So, Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion that we approve the revised contracts to purchase the proposed Green Dragon lift station parcel and 30-foot utility parcel right-of-way along West Center Lake and North Tangerine from the Smoke family.
Second.
I've got a motion second. Any other comments? Hearing none, we'll take it to the audience. Seeing none, bring it back, poll the council.
Councilmember Royce?
Yes.
Councilmember Wilson?
Yes.
Councilmember Sapp?
Yes.
Councilmember Hayes?
Yes.
Thank you. All right, next is 5D1, multiple residential garbage container fees. Go ahead.
Alan Kiefer for the record. My recommendation is to charge a $9 fee per month for individuals who want a second garbage container. We have just ordered 100 more. We have about 40 already spoken for of the 50 we have on hand for residents who are already interested throughout the course of the year that requested second cans. We just needed something in place, verbiage and a price, basically, so that way we know how to move forward with issuing these cans.
So if we're billing once a month at $9 a can, are you gonna do hundreds of individual bills for each can? I know you didn't want to put it on here as a tax charge. Do we need to charge more if we're doing it monthly?
No, it would.
Pretty cumbersome.
It would just be added, just like it would be to the water bill. It would just be a $9 a month fee. And if we put it on, say, the I believe, non-ad valorem tax, then it would be more of a nightmare of trying to start and stop individuals who wanted those cans, because we might only have the opportunity to charge that once a year. So if they wanted to start mid-year, we would be stuck between, do we just give them free service for half a year or tell them they have to wait until October? So that was my thought process behind that, was it would be easier to keep track of, and Rachel wouldn't have to do as much within keeping a separate code for residents on tax roll.
Alan, what was the number of people that are requesting additional cans? The number,
Right now, I believe we're at like 37 to 40.
are these historical heavy residents as it is now? In terms of, I mean, we're already cheaper than the county.
Right.
We have twice the pickups.
The
And
individual
then paying
residents, yeah.
half again instead of full rate for another can. I just want to make sure we're not too much use and abuse, you know, in terms of tipping. It's just gonna, we're doing it cheaper than cost, and the reality is what we're charging now is barely
Yeah, yeah,
breaking even.
yeah. I haven't gone into an individual assessment of every address that has requested these cans. They mostly come into Shelley, and she just makes a note of that. I
Are these, well, what
they're
concerns me
large
is some of these
families or-
quasi-residential, you know, they're calling it residential when it may be commercial. Instead of getting a dumpster, they're just getting another can, and they're getting a break on having more trash.
We have that separated. There's, commercial is a completely separate can.
Well,
Essentially, it's $1 a pickup. At $9, you're doing 8 pickups a month, a little more every third month you pick up a week with 2 extras. I think we should, a can's a can, $2.20 a can, or whatever the rate is for a can. You're getting 1 can now for that, we might as well do 2 if you want to, or be more efficient with your garbage. We're doing 400 cans a month. How many more trips are we gonna make to the dump for that at a half rate?
Yeah, we've got about 600 cans out now.
well, you see what we're
Into the
concerned about
220.
financially, you know, there's no incentive to, we've got bigger cans than what we've had, now granted, and part of that is to help people, but we have 2 pickups versus everyone else pretty much in the county. I'm not sure about Avon Park. They may have 2 pickups a week. I'm not certain about Sebring or the municipalities, but the county itself is only 1.
I think part of the issue
And
is
our
that
cans are
people
bigger.
also have, say, large items, bulk items, say, even boxes that people don't want to break down. Once we get this new truck in, there's not going to be a person on the back to pick up these other items. So a lot of them are kind of looking forward towards the future of, if it's on the side of the road outside of the can, it's going to sit there unless we come by with a claw truck. So it's,
Well, and there again, I'm not unopposed to trying this, but I don't know if we have any recourse later down the road to go up in price.
Sure we do. I mean, I think the beauty of this is that you could change the rate next month.
Yeah,
Because it's not having to certify for the thing, and so, I mean, to your guys' point, I want to make sure, so basically, if I want another can, I give you a $60 deposit, you issue me a can. I mean, I'd make it a round number and charge $10, and then when I don't want it anymore, I call you, you come back, you get the can, give me my $60 back, right?
right.
And the beauty, you're gonna add the $10 on my water bill, and it's gonna have a line that says extra garbage service or some such thing. I think we tried it $10 a month and see how it works, and
But I also put it in there that I would request there be a minimum duration of 6 months, because that way we don't get bombarded with, I only want it for December, or.
Right.
Then that would be a nightmare keeping track of it.
and I don't care if you just bill them the $60, you know.
I don't think it's enough. You're still only talking about $1 a pickup, 40 extra pickups each time
Well,
you
the
go through
question
there.
is going to
It's
be
not-
whether or not it's going to be generated every pickup.
Right.
And it may not be, It may not be, but there may be occasions where people want that option. And that's the unknown in this equation. So with that being said, though, I mean, I'm not unopposed to trying it at this, but if we got 40 new customers with a second can that's full every damn month, or I mean pickup at eight a month, and we're only charging half rate, then we need to address it.
A lot of it too, people have just not wanted to, any extra that they have, they don't want to have to put it in, say, a separate can and then have to transfer it back to a town can. If they
That's
just,
kind
they
of
just,
what I've been doing.
I haven't had a lot of requests due to just a bulk amount, like heavy users. It's typically people that just don't want to transfer things back and forth and wait from Tuesday to Friday. If we see a significant increase in tipping fees at the landfill, and then I can come back to you and say, hey, we need to, bump the numbers up or something, but I don't foresee that happening
Significantly.
currently.
Okay.
Need a motion for this, or are we just gonna?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll make a motion that we proceed with this at $10 a month and a $60 deposit to be added to the water bill. Is that how you're gonna do it?
That was my plan, we can do that. Yes.
Good.
Minimum 6 months. that's-
Second.
Six-month minimum. Yeah, add that to it.
Did you second, Ray? or- Okay.
Do we have a second?
Yes, sir.
Oh, okay. All right, we got a motion and a second. Any further discussion from the podium? Seeing none, we'll go to the audience. Okay, bring it back, poll the council.
Councilmember Sapp,
Yes.
Councilmember Royce,
Yes.
Councilmember Wilson,
Yes.
Councilmember Hayes.
Yes.
Mr. Mayor, I would ask, town attorney, is that something that we need to put in a resolution maybe for next meeting? Since it's adding to our ordinance a little bit?
Yes, not a resolution, but maybe even an ordinance. Let me check, because
Okay.
fees, one has to be in an ordinance, one a resolution. Let me look.
Okay.
I'll bring back the appropriate.
Well, I think this is a voluntary one, not a mandatory one, if that matters or not.
That's
They're
true, Greg.
Requesting
You may be
an extra
right.
service.
Let me look.
Okay. Okay, last thing on the agenda, 5D2, lease agreement for space at the Government Center to Senator Grawl.
Mr. Mayor, this is more of a kind of an update with, for council, as much as it is to obtain a simple lease agreement. But Senator Grawl, we met with the senator, and turns out that I worked with her brother several years over in Vero Beach in the sheriff's office. So it's kind of neat. But she was in the other day, and we've been negotiating with Marty, and everything's good to go. But they required a lease agreement, and they could not use the Stubbe agreement. I gave that to her, and they couldn't use that because she said it had some things in there that they couldn't use. She furnished one that was a simple thing that Denise Grimsley had when she was in Punta Gorda, and said that would work. And I know last time I put the lease agreement before council and said, yeah, the council is okay, you guys okay with it? And council had no problem. And I'm just putting a simple lease agreement in front of you and saying, is this okay? If you want to have Bert look at it and alter it or whatever, just looking to go ahead and get things going by the end of this month.
I'll make a motion that we enter into the lease agreement as provided by the senator's office with, subject to the approval. You know, we enter into a lease agreement, the mayor can sign, subject to legal review with Senator Grawl's office. And I'll say in support of my motion, I think it's great that the senator wants to have an office here in Lake Placid to serve the constituents over here. And especially with the staff member she has, Miss Milky being a Lake Placid resident, I think a lot of stuff's going to happen here. Senator Grawl has actually been over quite a bit in the last several weeks, going to various other meetings I'm involved with, and so I think she's going to be active in the area. So I think it's great that we are going to have Senator Grawl in an office and a representative from Congressman Franklin, and people will be down here utilizing, it's good to have them think about Lake Placid, and as we kind of create the most hospitable climate in Highlands County to live in, this is one of these little small steps to doing that.
So I agree. Do we need to charge them the $185? Is that necessary a month? I think it's nice having them here. So,
They're more than happy. I mean, if they were going and, I mean, we are the best deal in town. Yeah, I mean, if they were going and getting competitive space, I mean, we are obviously,
probably charging them for the door.
yeah.
Yeah, I'll second that.
We already have a lease agreement too coming in with the other office for 185. That's the reason why I stuck with that price. So
That's Congressman Franklin's
we'd
office.
have to go back to them and say, hey, we're not charging the senator.
Second.
Okay. We had a motion. Do we have a second?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. Any other comments from the podium? Okay, seeing none, we'll take it to the audience. Bring it back, poll the council.
Councilmember Royce?
Yes.
Councilmember Sapp?
Yes.
Councilmember Wilson?
Yes.
Councilmember Hayes?
Yes.
It's my opinion, the lease is acceptable, period. It was subject to my approval. It's approved. Done. Next.
All right, we'll take it, that's all we have, unless you all have some items that want to come before council. We'll take it to the audience. Are there any comments or concerns out there? I know Eva is really happy that you guys got this meeting over with in a hurry. They're on their way to Orlando to catch a plane to New York. So she was hoping that we would finish at a reasonable hour. I told her we would probably not be able to do it, but I want you guys to have a good, safe trip. And bring us back lots of souvenirs, okay? Okay. Nell, do you have anything?
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. Brett?
Merry Christmas, Happy New Year's to everyone.
Charlie?
Ditto.
Tito. Greg?
Yes. Ditto. Good. I want to add, Kevin, I don't know if anything's different at the utilities department, but I think you're doing a fine job because we don't hear anything from you. It's nice. There is never a problem. And that's all I have to say.
Okay. Town Attorney, you got anything?
No, sir, I've said enough tonight. Thank you very
How
much.
about our department heads? Nothing? All right, Phil, you have the last word. Anything?
Well, the next StarPac meeting is in February, and I certainly have the pickleball courts and everything. We have to meet with Polston, and there's some things that we have to go out, but in January, we're gonna have to, try to make a decision. If you wanna be on the February agenda in January, we need to try to make a decision, so I may be putting out some emails to council and educating you guys, and we approved for one of the designers, I think I approved $3,500 for a designer to design the police department to make a drawing, so around 3,500, I think it was. So that's coming back toward you. That plays into this fire department stuff, if you can get them to get moving.
Right. Okay. Well, if there's nothing else to come before town council, meeting adjourned.